Hey, Winter Circle. I know a lot of y'all out there are in a season where you are trusting God for breakthrough, trusting God to meet your goals, trusting God to literally make it. Even in life threatening situations or even with family and relationships. But I know a lot of you all are just believing God for more. Believing more in 2024 that God is actually going to invade in your situation and invade in your life and actually change it for the good, like His word says. Well, I'm actually in the same season of trusting God. God is teaching me how to trust Him, how to rely on Him, how to follow Him, and how to even put down my own thoughts to take on His thoughts and His plans and what He has for me. So, one thing I want to do is just give you all some encouragement and give you all some guidelines on how to trust God. And this is from the point of where I am right now. So, one thing I do know is that trusting God doesn't look exactly like we want it to. And we think God's plan looks like what we want it to look like or what we think it should look like. Because the thing is, we have a plan in our mind. But one thing is that God has His own plan. And we can't change His plan. God does not change. And one thing I know for myself, I'll be transparent, is that I thought that God's plans looked like what I thought and what it should look like. And He may have told me something, gave me an instruction, and I took that in my flesh and I went my own way. But God brought me back. Thank God, by His grace, He brought me back. He wheeled me back in, and He was like, nope. And I heard this profound statement. It says, don't finish in the flesh what started in the spirit. And that let me know right there that even though God gives you an instruction and wants you to do something, that you have to stick with Him throughout the whole process. He never gives you anything for you to run with it and to forget Him, because ultimately He wants relationship with you. He wants to take you by the hand, tell you how to do it, give you the instructions, because at the end of the day, we never want to rely on ourselves, but we always want to rely on God. But one thing I know I could have done, and you all could do, is I could have simply just asked Him, like, what does your plan look like? How do I even walk this out? I just needed to simply ask Him, and that's simply what He wanted, because just like I just said, He wants that relationship with us. But we have to remember, it's not our plan. It's God's plan. If we have surrendered ourselves to Him, ultimately it's His plan. Just like according to Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you." Excuse me. And not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And one thing I do know is that we don't know His plans, but He said to acknowledge Him in all of our ways, and He will direct our path. So if we just take the time out to even sit with Him, like on my previous video, I said, sitting with Him, sit with Him and just stay in that place. So if you just take time out from your busy schedule, maybe even 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and just sit there and talk to Him, He will talk back. But you got to make sure you clear out the clutter so you can hear Him. But the reality of God's plan unfolding may actually look like losing a job. It may look like losing a friendship. It may look like losing your best friend. And I'm not saying to death, but the relationship itself has died. It may look like everything around you is just tearing down. It may even look like you just falling behind on your bills, and you may be losing clients, and it just looks like a big tearing away is happening in your life. And during that time, we're like, God, what's going on? And we're scrambling ourselves, trying to make ends meet. But in reality, we're not really seeing what God is doing. And y'all may be saying, well, that doesn't make sense. God is good. But we have to remember, God always subtracts before he adds. And the reason he does that is because when I was just talking about those relationships, you may be seeing a loss of relationships. Everybody can't go with you where you're going, because the reality of it is they don't have the character that you have to be able to hold the position that God is pushing you into. So if they don't have the character that you have, they haven't developed how you're developing, they can spoil you, and they can spoil the position that you're moving into. So the thing is, whatever God is tearing away, let him do it. But let him tear away, but also be wise. Speak to him, talk to him. What do I do? How do I do it? Who are the people I need to stay away from? Who are the people that I need to talk to? Because relationships are very vital in your life. There are people who are here to do one of two things: either tear you down and keep you from getting to your destiny, or the ones that are going to build you up. And those are the ones that are going to build you up are the ones that God is taking you to, the ones who God is putting you with. But like I said, God always subtracts before he adds. And one thing is, you can't, God can't take you somewhere new if you are still attached to the old places and the old things. And when God does that, God takes you away from those old places and old things, because he's not only pruning you, but he's pruning your environment. He's pruning your circumstances. So all of those things, those are the old things. If you ever find anything getting stripped away from you and you are in your walk with God, ask him, why are you stripping these things? Are you stripping these things away from me? Or am I not stewarding it correctly? But when God has given you a word that he's going to give you more and that he's going to better you, you have to remember that there's always going to be a transition period from where you are to where you're going. And during that transition period, you're going to lose things. So when he prunes you, got your character together, got your mind together, once he gets that together, now he's going to get your environment together to transition you into those new places to where he wants you to be. But I know you all may be asking, like, well, what does trusting God look like? And from where I am now, I'm going on this journey and I'm taking y'all with me. God is teaching me how to trust him. And like I just mentioned earlier, and I'll give an updated video later on down the road if necessary. But what I have learned from right now, I have learned two things. When it comes to trusting God, it looks like for you, from your standpoint, of going with the flow of what he's doing, even though you don't understand. And for me, it's kind of like, God, I'm holding on. Like, what are you doing? Where are you going? I'm here along for the ride with you and where you're taking me. But tell me what to do during these times. And during that time where you may feel things being stripped away, or things are just all of a sudden starting to change, and God has made you those promises, that's that time to commune with God even more and to build that relationship with him. That way you can hear him and you can hear his instruction that he's giving you. Because he could say, no, don't go there. No, don't talk to that person. Stay right here. Be diligent on what I've told you to work on. And that is what you need to do, because he's keeping you in that safe place, in that safe spot, to where you can continue to move in the plans that he has for you. And number two, what it looks like to trust God is not looking back. And I know we've all heard that a lot. We've heard it in a lot of different contexts. I don't even know if that's a word, but we've heard it differently a lot of times. But what that means is simply to accept that he's making changes and taking you to the next. But if you keep trying to stay attached to the old, you can delay the new that God has for you, or you can even forfeit the new that God has for you. Because if you're clenching the old and you're trying to keep together everything that you have, and you have to be able to flow with the things, oh goodness, excuse me, I'm tongue tied, but flow with the things of God and let go of what he's trying to get you to let go. And when you are clenching and holding on tightly to the old things, you're looking back. You're not looking forward. You're not looking forward to the promises that God has for you. You're saying, oh my goodness, this is familiar. This is what I know. I need to keep it all together. But let it fall. And I'm not saying don't pay your bills. I'm not saying don't go to the doctor. I'm not saying just let your kids go wild. We all still need to use wisdom. But more importantly, let go of what God is telling you to let go. And be discerning. If you know God is taking you from a job to entrepreneurship, them letting you go should not be a surprise. Or if God is taking you from entrepreneurship back into a job, whatever your situation may be, you have to trust those things, because everybody is in different seasons and in different places in their life. But we have to trust what God is doing, because we know, just like Jeremiah 29:11 says, his plans are to prosper you and not to harm you, but plans to give you hope in a future. So the thing is, even though it feels uncomfortable, even though the stripping doesn't feel good, or the loss of relationships doesn't feel good, or whatever the report was, we have to trust that God is taking us to the new. Because he says he has new for us. But we can never get to the new without letting go of the old. The old will always mess up the new, or it will hold us back from getting to the new. So stay there. But exactly, I asked God, I said, Father, how do I trust you? And how do I even tell the listeners, what do I do? How do I trust you? And the answer he gave me, it was so simple that it's like we always are looking for something complicated. I'll speak for myself, but what he told me was, he said, stay the course on what I have set before you, and don't quit. Don't faint. Take a step at a time. And that's just so simple. It's literally just one foot in front of the other. Keep doing what I told you to do and don't stop. And if you have ever heard of Latoya Okia, I love her. She's amazing. I count her as like my big sister. I've never met her, but I listen to her often. And she said something so profound. She said, you have to remember that this is a marathon. This is not a drag race. And it's just like, I think of a marathon and I think of a quarter of a mile. That quarter of a mile is real quick. You either win or you don't. But a marathon, you have to learn how to gain stamina within a marathon. You have to be able to sustain in a marathon. You learn more in the marathon than you do in the quarter of a mile race. You just have to be able to, this is my opinion. It could be wrong, but I just think of when you want to get things quickly, you don't learn things. So when you do get there and you do have all of that you wished for and that you prayed for, will you be able to keep it? And the path that I know that God has us all on is building our character to be able to sustain the things that he gives us, and to be able to be an example for the next person who is watching us. So I wanted to get on here, just let y'all know, because this is something I'm going through myself, letting you all know what it looks like to trust God, what circumstances it may look like when you're trusting God. But I love y'all. Y'all keep going, keep striving, and do not quit. Remember what God said. He said, stay the course on what I have set before you, and don't quit, don't faint. take a step at a time. Take it day by day. Just keep going and don't stop. I love y'all.